Did you know that according to the FBI, financial scams targeting seniors resulted in over $3 billion in reported losses last year? $3 billion. Now, most people think these con artists succeed because of a clever script or a convincing lie. They're wrong. The most powerful tool a manipulator has, the one they use to bypass your rational mind and get you to trust them, is their body, specifically their eyes. Before a single word of the scam leaves their lips, they're already working on you using practiced eye contact to create a false sense of security. It's a silent, insidious form of dark psychology, and it's devastatingly effective because we are hardwired to believe what we see, especially in someone's eyes. We think we can see honesty there. A good manipulator knows this and will turn your own instincts against you. Let me tell you about a man I'll call Mr. Sterling. He was a financial advisor in a small town, impeccably dressed, a pillar of the community. He managed the retirement funds for dozens of families, mostly elderly folks who trusted him completely. And for years, everything seemed fine. Then, the whole house of cards collapsed. He'd been running a Ponzi scheme. When I was brought in to consult on the interrogations, I sat across from him and watched him work. He looked me straight in the eye, his gaze unwavering, projecting an aura of calm, sincere indignation. He was a master. But he made a classic mistake. His eye contact was too perfect. It was unnervingly steady. You see, normal human conversation involves natural breaks in eye contact. We look away briefly to access memories, to formulate a thought. It's called gaze aversion. A person telling the truth might look up and to the left to recall a visual memory, or down and to the right to access a feeling. Sterling did none of that. His eyes were locked on mine like a predator. It wasn't the gaze of an innocent man. It was the intense focus of a performer concentrating on his role. He was so focused on seeming honest that he forgot how an honest person actually behaves. There's a simple psychological principle at play here: cognitive load. Lying is hard work for the brain. It has to invent a story, keep the details straight, monitor the listener's reaction, and suppress the truth, all at the same time. This immense mental effort often causes tells to leak out. One of the first places it shows is in the eyes. The liar either overcompensates, like Sterling, with an unblinking, borderline aggressive stare to appear dominant and truthful, or they do the opposite. They can't meet your gaze at all, not in the natural way of someone thinking, but in a shifty, evasive manner. Their eyes will dart around looking for an escape route, because they subconsciously feel trapped by the lie. The key isn't whether they look away, it's how and when they look away. Does it correspond with a difficult question? Does it seem shifty rather than thoughtful? Think about it in your own life. You're at a car dealership, and the salesperson is telling you a used car was owned by a little old lady who only drove it to church. Are they staring at you with an almost hypnotic intensity, their smile never wavering? That's a manipulation tactic designed to build pressure and feign sincerity. Or consider a relative asking for a loan, promising to pay it back next week. When you ask a simple, clarifying question, do their eyes suddenly find the floor, the ceiling, anywhere but your face? That's the cognitive load of deception showing. They can't maintain the lie and maintain normal social eye contact simultaneously. I want you to ask yourself 2 questions. First, have you ever felt someone was trying too hard to seem trustworthy with their eye contact, to the point where it made you feel uncomfortable? Second, what does it feel like when someone refuses to meet your gaze during an important conversation? That feeling in your gut is data. Don't ignore it. It's your primal brain picking up on a signal that something is wrong. The eyes are the beginning of the story. Learn to read them, and you'll see the plot twist coming a mile away. When you feel threatened, what's the first thing you do without thinking? You protect your vital organs. You hunch your shoulders. You cross your arms over your chest and stomach. You make yourself smaller. It's a primal instinct, a holdover from a time when threats were physical, not just a difficult question in a comfortable room. A manipulator, someone using dark psychology to get what they want, creates a sense of threat on a subconscious level. They are attacking your boundaries, your wallet, your peace of mind. And even if your conscious mind is being lulled by their words, your body knows the truth. It will try to protect you. This is why the second major red flag is the appearance of defensive postures. When someone's words say, "Trust me, I'm open with you," but their body is closed off like a fortress, you have a serious contradiction. And in my line of work, the body never lies. I remember a suspect named Frank. He was brought in for questioning about a series of burglaries in a quiet, affluent neighborhood. On the surface, Frank was cooperative. He answered every question politely. He said all the right things. "No, sir, I was at home. I'd never do something like that." But his body was telling a completely different story. From the moment he sat down, he crossed his arms tightly across his chest, so tight his knuckles were white. Then he locked his ankles together under the chair. He had created a full-body shield. I asked him what he did for a living, and he answered, "Construction." I asked him about his family, and he answered, "Married, 2 kids," all while maintaining this defensive shell. It was then until I presented a single piece of evidence, a blurry photo of a man resembling him near one of the crime scenes, that his posture broke. He uncrossed his arms, leaned forward, and his whole demeanor changed. His body had been holding in the tension of the lie, and the moment the lie was challenged, the physical barrier crumbled. The science behind this is rooted in our limbic system, the ancient part of our brain responsible for survival instincts. When the limbic system perceives a threat, whether it as a tiger in the jungle or an investigator asks pointed question, it triggers the fight-or-flight response. Defensive body language is a physical manifestation of the freeze or shield part of this response. Crossing the arms protects the heart and lungs. Crossing the ankles immobilizes you, a way of exerting self-control when you feel like running away. Someone might even place objects in front of them, like a coffee cup, a purse, or a notepad, creating a small wall between them and the person they're talking to. These aren't conscious decisions, they are deeply ingrained, automatic behaviors designed to create a feeling of safety when our brain is screaming that we're under attack. You see this all the time in daily life. Imagine you bring up a sensitive topic with a family member, maybe an unpaid debt or a broken promise. Watch their body. Do they immediately cross their arms and lean back? That's not a sign of a relaxed, open conversation. It's a shield going up. Or picture a manager in a meeting who has just been presented with data that contradicts their opinion. They might not say anything negative, but if they suddenly button their suit jacket or fold their hands tightly on the table, their body is signaling disagreement and defensiveness. They feel their authority is being challenged, and they are physically and emotionally closing themselves off. It's a powerful tell that what you're saying is hitting a nerve, regardless of the polite smile on their face. So here are your questions for reflection. Think about the last time you felt unfairly accused or put on the spot. How did you sit? Did you find yourself crossing your arms or wanting to put something between you and the other person? And more importantly, have you noticed how other people physically shield themselves when a conversation turns to a topic they want to avoid? Pay attention to these barriers. They are the nonverbal equivalent of a castle wall, and they tell you that you've stumbled upon territory the other person is desperately trying to protect. There's a saying, the face is the billboard of the mind. Most of the time we have conscious control over that billboard. We can choose to display a smile when we're disappointed, or a look of calm concern when we're secretly thrilled. A skilled manipulator is an expert at controlling this billboard. But every once in a while, for a fraction of a second, the real advertisement flashes through. A flicker of anger, a flash of contempt, a momentary smirk of delight. These are called micro-expressions, and they are the moments when the conscious mask slips and the raw, unfiltered emotion underneath is exposed. This incongruence, the mismatch between the mask and the true face, is one of the most reliable signs of manipulation and deceit. If someone's words are telling you one story, but their fleeting expression tells you another, believe the expression. It's the truth leaking out. I'll never forget a case involving a woman named Margaret. She was a wealthy widow in her late 70s who reported the theft of an incredibly valuable diamond necklace. She claimed a burglar had broken in while she was out. When the officers and I arrived, she was the picture of distress. Her voice trembled. She dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. She spoke at length about the necklace's sentimental value. She was playing the part of the victim perfectly. But I asked her to describe the moment she walked in and realized it was gone. As she said the words, it was just gone. Her face contorted in sadness. But for about 1/25th of a second, I saw it. A tiny, almost imperceptible upward pull at the corner of her lips. A micro-expression of a smirk. It was pure, unfiltered delight. That single flash was enough. It told me she wasn't sad about the necklace being gone, she was happy about it. The investigation shifted. We looked into her finances, and sure enough, she was deeply in debt. She had pawned the necklace herself and faked the burglary for the insurance money. Her words were a lie, but that fleeting smirk was a confession. This phenomenon was famously studied by Dr. Paul Ekman. He proved that there are 7 universal facial expressions of emotion: anger, fear, sadness, disgust, contempt, surprise, and happiness. These are hardwired into our brains. When you experience a genuine emotion, your limbic system sends an immediate signal to your facial muscles. This is an automatic, involuntary reaction. Now, your neocortex, the thinking part of your brain, can step in and try to suppress it. It can say, "Don't show you're angry, smile instead." But it can't always beat the initial, faster signal from the limbic system. The result is a brief leakage of the true emotion before the socially correct or deceptive expression takes over. The manipulator is actively trying to project one emotion while feeling another. The micro-expression is the glitch in their performance. This happens in less dramatic ways every single day. Let's say you share some good news with a colleague. You got the promotion you were both competing for. They smile widely and say, "Congratulations! I'm so happy for you." But just before that big, practiced smile appears, you see a flash of tightening in their jaw and a narrowing of their lips. That's a micro-expression of anger. Their words are a social courtesy, that fleeting look was their genuine reaction. Or think about a time a salesperson tells you, "This is our best deal, and it's only available today." As they say it, you might see a brief, one-sided raising of the corner of their lip, the universal sign for contempt. Their subconscious mind is essentially saying, "You'd have to be a fool to believe this." The mismatch is the key. So, I want you to start paying closer attention. Have you ever had that gut feeling that someone's smile didn't quite reach their eyes? That's you, on an intuitive level, picking up on the incongruence between a real smile and a fake one. And can you recall a time when someone's facial expression and their words felt completely disconnected, even if you couldn't put your finger on why? You were likely witnessing a micro-expression. Trust that instinct. It's your brain's early warning system that the billboard is showing a false advertisement. Every animal on this planet has a territory, an area it considers its own. Humans are no different. We walk around inside a series of invisible bubbles that define our personal space. There's the intimate zone, for family and lovers. The personal zone, for close friends. The social zone, for acquaintances. And the public zone, for everyone else. We are acutely aware, on a subconscious level, when someone crosses into one of these zones without an invitation. It sets off alarm bells. It makes us uncomfortable, anxious, and defensive. A savvy manipulator understands this dynamic not as a social boundary to be respected, but as a weapon to be used. The intentional violation of your personal space is a classic manipulation tactic designed to intimidate, dominate, and control you. It's a physical power play meant to throw you off balance and make you more suggestible. I once consulted on a case involving a company that sold overpriced and unnecessary home repairs to the elderly. Their top salesman, a man we'll call Vince, had a staggering closing rate. When we interviewed some of his clients, they all said the same thing. He was just so intense I couldn't think straight. We set up a sting operation and watched him work. His technique was a masterclass in dark psychology. He wouldn't just sit across the living room from his target. He'd pull a chair right up next to theirs, so their knees were almost touching. When he pointed to something in his brochure, he'd lean in so close they could feel his breath. He would place a hand on their shoulder or forearm, a gesture that seems friendly but in this context was a profound invasion of intimate space. He was using proximity to create an overwhelming sense of pressure. His targets felt so uncomfortable and hemmed in that they would agree to anything just to get him to back away and give them room to breathe. He wasn't selling home repairs, he was selling relief from his own suffocating presence. The study of this is called proxemics, and it's fundamental to understanding nonverbal communication. When someone stands too close, our amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, lights up. It triggers a low-level stress response. Our heart rate might increase, our muscles tense up. We are physically preparing for a potential confrontation. The manipulator exploits this biological reaction. By invading your personal or intimate space, they are sending a powerful nonverbal signal of dominance. They are saying, "I am in control here. The normal rules of social engagement do not apply to me. I will decide how close we get." This puts you in a reactive, submissive position. Your focus shifts from rationally evaluating their proposal to simply coping with the discomfort of their proximity. It's a subtle but brutal form of bullying. You can observe this tactic in many settings. Think of a boss who, instead of talking to you from across their desk, comes around and leans over your shoulder to look at your screen. It's designed to be intimidating. Or consider a social situation where someone you've just met stands inches from your face while talking. They're not just a close talker, they are often testing your boundaries to see if you can be easily dominated. When you instinctively take a step back and they immediately step forward again, closing the gap, that's no accident. That is a deliberate act of control. They are refusing to accept the boundary you have set. This is a massive red flag. Someone who doesn't respect your physical boundaries is highly unlikely to respect any of your other boundaries, be they financial, emotional, or professional. So, ask yourself these two things. First, how do you physically feel when a stranger stands closer to you than necessary, like in an elevator or a checkout line? That prickle of anxiety is your personal alarm system. Don't dismiss it. Second, have you ever found yourself stepping away from someone during a conversation, only to have them step right back in? Recognize that for what it is. Not friendliness, but a test of your assertiveness. A person who respects you will respect your space. A manipulator will use it against you. Most liars, especially the amateur ones, focus all their energy on controlling their face and their words. They practice their sincere expression in the mirror. They rehearse their story until it sounds smooth. But they almost always forget about their hands. The hands are incredibly difficult to control under pressure. They are wonderfully expressive instruments that can betray the truth even when the face is putting on a convincing performance. While the mouth is speaking a lie, the hands are often fidgeting, hiding, or gesturing in ways that reveal the anxiety and tension the speaker's trying to conceal. In an interrogation room, I often paid more attention to what was happening below the table than what was happening above it. The hands don't know how to lie. Let me tell you about a young man named Leo. He was a suspect in an arson case at a warehouse where he used to work. He claimed he was fired unjustly and held a grudge, which gave him a clear motive. When I sat down with him, his face was a mask of calm denial. His voice was steady. He looked me in the eye. On the surface, he was projecting total confidence. But I made a point of sitting at a glass-topped table. Underneath that table, his hands were telling the real story. They were in constant, frantic motion. He was wringing them, rubbing his palms on his jeans until the fabric must have been hot, and clenching and unclenching his fists in a rhythmic, desperate pattern. His mouth was saying, "I have nothing to be nervous about," but his hands were screaming, "I am under an unbearable amount of stress." That discrepancy was the key. We pressed him on the details of his alibi, and eventually, faced with the mounting pressure, his verbal composure cracked, just as his hands had predicted it would. This behavior is driven by our autonomic nervous system. When you're lying or under extreme stress, your body is flooded with adrenaline. You have all this nervous energy that has to go somewhere. The brain often directs it into small, repetitive movements called pacifying gestures or adapters. These are subconscious attempts to self-soothe and burn off that excess energy. Rubbing the back of the neck, touching the face, playing with a pen, adjusting clothing, or fidgeting with the hands are all examples of your body trying to calm itself down. A manipulator might be able to control their facial expression, but it's very difficult to stop these involuntary, stress-induced movements. You might also see someone hide their hands altogether, shoving them in their pockets or sitting on them. This can be a subconscious attempt to conceal deceit, stemming from the old notion of not wanting to be caught red-handed. You can spot these telltale hand movements everywhere once you know what to look for. Watch a politician delivering a speech on a controversial topic they may not fully believe in. Their face might be confident, but are they gripping the podium so hard their knuckles are white? That's tension leaking out. Or perhaps you're negotiating a price for a service, and the contractor gives you a quote that seems too high. As he's assuring you it's the best price, you notice him repeatedly touching his nose or covering his mouth with his hand. These can be signs of deception, as if the brain is subconsciously trying to block the lie from coming out. A friend telling you a story that doesn't quite add up might be picking at their fingernails or fiddling with their watch, their hands betraying the anxiety their casual tone is trying to hide. So I want you to start noticing. First, what do you personally do with your hands when you feel nervous or anxious? Understanding your own baseline is the first step to recognizing it in others. Second, the next time you have a gut feeling someone isn't being completely straight with you, take a moment to observe their hands. Are they calm and open, or are they busy, hidden, or tense? The hands are the mind's other billboard, and they often advertise the uncut, honest truth. If there is one part of the body that is almost completely honest, it's the feet. We've been conditioned since childhood to control our facial expressions, to watch what we say, and even to be mindful of what we do with our hands. But nobody ever tells you to control your feet. They are the furthest point from the conscious brain, and as a result, they are often the first part of the body to react to a person, seated as true feelings or intentions. In a tense or uncomfortable situation, the feet will literally point where the mind wants to go. If you want to know if someone is truly engaged with you, or if they are looking for an escape, don't look at their eyes. Look at their shoes. I was once brought in to mediate a nasty neighborhood dispute between two families, the Millers and the Thompsons. The official story was about a property line, but it was clear the animosity ran much deeper. I sat down with Mr. and Mrs. Miller in their living room. Mr. Miller was angry, animated, and leaning forward, his whole body invested in telling me his side of the story. His feet were planted firmly on the floor, pointed directly at me. Mrs. Miller, however, was a different case. Her upper body was turned towards me, she nodded at all the right times, and her words were supportive of her husband. She seemed completely engaged, but under the coffee table her feet were angled a full 90 degrees away from us, pointing directly at the front door. Her body was stuck in that room, but her feet were already halfway down the street. It was a classic exit signal. It told me that she was deeply uncomfortable and wanted nothing more than to escape the conversation. This small tell indicated she was holding something back. Later, in a private conversation, she admitted that she knew her husband had escalated the conflict unnecessarily and was terrified of the consequences. Her feet had told me she wanted to run away from the conflict long before her words did. This goes back to our fundamental fight-or-flight instinct. The feet are our primary tool for escape. When our brain feels trapped, threatened, or disinterested, it subconsciously prepares the body for departure. The very first step in leaving a place is to orient the feet in the direction you want to go. It's an intention cue. We do it without thinking. Because we are so rarely conscious of our foot position, it becomes an incredibly reliable indicator of our true state of mind. A person can fake a smile, control their hands, and modulate their voice, but they almost never think to fake the direction of their feet. You can use this observation to your advantage in any social or professional setting. Imagine you're at a networking event, and you're talking to a potential client. Their torso is angled towards you, they're making eye contact, and they're smiling. But you notice their feet, or even just one foot, is pointed away from you, perhaps towards the bar or another group of people. That is a powerful signal that you do not have their full attention. They may be physically present, but their mind is already on its way to the next conversation. This is your cue to wrap it up, as you're unlikely to make a meaningful connection. Conversely, if someone's feet are pointed directly at you, mirroring your own stance, it's a sign of rapport and genuine engagement. They are, quite literally, pointedly interested in you. Take a moment to think about this. The next time you find yourself in a conversation that you're secretly desperate to get out of, take a quick look down at your own feet. Where are they pointing? I'd be willing to bet they are aimed at the nearest exit. And now that you're aware of it, start observing others. Have you ever been talking to someone whose upper body was engaged but their lower body seemed to be pulling them away? That wasn't your imagination. That was their honest brain signaling its desire to be elsewhere. The feet don't have a social filter, they just have a destination. We've talked about what the body shows, but just as important is what the body sounds like. The voice is an instrument, and its qualities, pitch, pace, tone, and volume, provide a running commentary on our emotional state. A manipulator using dark psychology is often focused on the content of their words, making sure the script is persuasive. But the stress and cognitive load of maintaining a lie almost always manifest in the delivery. This is what I call vocal incongruity, a mismatch between the meaning of the words and the sound of the voice speaking them. When a person's words say, "I am calm and telling the truth," but their voice is high-pitched, strained, or wavering, you should always trust the voice. It's vibrating with the truth of their emotional state. I remember questioning a young man named Danny about a stolen car. He was 19, cocky, and had a minor record. He sat back in his chair trying to look relaxed, almost bored by the whole process. He denied any involvement with a smirk. "Nope, wasn't me. I was home all night." The words were definite, but the sound was wrong. His normal speaking voice was in a lower register, but when he delivered his denial, his voice cracked and jumped up half an octave, especially on the word "nope." It was the classic pubescent voice crack, but in a grown man. This happened every time I asked a direct question about his whereabouts. His body was trying to project nonchalance, but his vocal cords were tightening under the stress of the lie, forcing the pitch up. It was a sonic tell, as clear as a confession. The pressure of the lie was literally squeezing the truth out of his voice box. The science behind this is fascinating and directly tied to the fight or flight response. When you are under stress, and lying to authority is stressful, the autonomic nervous system kicks in. It causes muscle tension throughout the body, including the tiny, delicate muscles that control your vocal cords. This tightening makes the cords vibrate faster, which results in a higher vocal pitch. The same system also causes your mouth to go dry, which can lead to telltale mouth clicks, stammering, or the need to constantly clear your throat. Your breathing rate can also increase, causing you to speak faster than normal or in short, clipped bursts, as if you're running out of air. The liar isn't consciously controlling these things, they are involuntary physiological reactions to the stress of deception. You can hear these vocal tells in everyday life if you listen for the baseline. The key is to notice the change from a person's normal speaking patterns. For example, you ask an employee about a missed deadline. They give you an excuse that sounds reasonable, but it's delivered at a much faster pace than their usual, more measured way of speaking. They might be rushing through the lie before their brain can trip them up. Or you ask your partner a simple question like, "What did you do today?" and their response is delivered in a monotone, a flat affect that is unusual for them. This can be a sign of someone trying to suppress strong emotions tied to the deception. They're trying so hard to sound normal that they strip all the natural musicality and emotion out of their voice, making it sound robotic. So, I want you to become a more active listener. First, have you ever noticed your own voice change when you're telling a white lie or when you're extremely nervous? Does it get higher, faster, or quieter? Acknowledging your own patterns makes you a better observer of others. Second, can you tell when a close friend or family member is upset just by the sound of their hello on the phone, even if their words are perfectly fine? That skill you're using is the ability to detect vocal incongruity. Start applying it to conversations where the stakes are higher. The words may be a carefully constructed fiction, but the tone is often the unedited truth. We come now to the final and perhaps most subtle sign of a master manipulator: the over-rehearsed performance. A person telling the truth is accessing a memory. A person telling a lie is reciting a script. Memory retrieval is a messy, imperfect process. We forget details, we remember things out of order, we pause to reconstruct a scene in our minds, we correct ourselves. It's natural. A fabricated story, on the other hand, is often too smooth, too linear, too perfect. It has been built and rehearsed for a performance. The manipulator's greatest strength, their preparation, is also their greatest weakness, because truth is messy and a script is clean. When you encounter a story that is unnaturally polished, you should be deeply suspicious. Let's circle back to Mr. Sterling, the charming financial advisor from the beginning. During my initial interview with him, I asked him to walk me through the last conversation he had with one of his victims, a widow named Mrs. Gable. He recounted it perfectly. The details were precise, the timeline was logical, his emotional tone was spot on. It was a flawless performance. I let him finish, and then I asked him to do it again, but this time, to tell me the story in reverse chronological order. I wanted him to start with the moment Mrs. Gable left his office and work backward to the moment she walked in. A person accessing a real memory can do this. It might be a bit clumsy, but they can jump to the end of the event and work their way back. Mr. Sterling couldn't. He completely fell apart. He stammered. He got confused. He tried to start from the beginning again. He couldn't do it because he wasn't accessing a memory he was trying to play a tape backward, and his brain wasn't built for that. He had memorized a sequence of events, a script. By forcing him off script, his entire fabrication unraveled. The psychology here is about the difference between memory creation and memory recall. When we experience an event, our brain stores it as a complex web of sensory and emotional data. When we recall it, we are actively rebuilding it, which is why our story might change slightly with each telling as we remember different details. A lie isn't stored this way. It's constructed logically, like a chapter in a book. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. This is why liars often provide too many irrelevant details, a phenomenon known as the verisimilitude effect. They believe that adding small specific details, like the color of the coffee mug on the table or the song playing on the radio, will make their story sound more real. In reality, most people don't remember events with that level of trivial precision. It's a sign of over-construction. You've likely seen this in your own life. Think of a child who breaks a vase and, when confronted, launches into a highly detailed, minute-by-minute account of how the cat must have done it. The story is too elaborate, too perfect. They've been spending the last 10 minutes not just thinking of a lie, but building a fortress of a lie. Or consider an employee who explains why they were late with a story that includes specific traffic light timings and the exact words of a radio news report. It feels less like an explanation and more like an alibi presented in court. It's too polished. To test it, you can use a simplified version of the reverse order technique. Ask them a clarifying question about something in the middle of their story. This disrupts their linear recitation and forces them to jump around in their own script, which is often where you'll see them hesitate or become defensive. So, reflect on this. Think about the last time you told a true, spontaneous story to a friend. Did you tell it perfectly the first time? Or did you pause, say, "Wait, no," before that happened, and correct yourself? That's what truth sounds like. Now, have you ever listened to someone's explanation and had the feeling that it was just a little too smooth, a little too well packaged? Trust that feeling. You're not being cynical, you're recognizing the difference between authentic recall and a well-rehearsed performance. Understanding these signs isn't about becoming paranoid, it's about empowerment. It's about being able to see past the performance and protect yourself from those who use the tools of dark psychology. It's about giving you the clarity to trust your gut when a story just does not feel right.